Hey gang, how's it going? Nate on the Stone here, welcome back to my channel. You know, for as depressing as it is, I love the story of a Frankenstein. And it's a story that actually is a lot more relevant to us than we might think. Now what do I mean by that? Well, let's start the video. Alright, Frankenstein. But before we get into the fun stuff, let me start off with a little bit of a prologue. Did you know that last Tuesday, May 19th, was Agender Pride Day? And did you know that 2 days before that, May 17th, was the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia? There are actually more rainbow days in May than just that. May 22nd is Harvey Milk Day, and May 24th is Pansexual, Panromantic Awareness and Visibility Day. And all of these days lead up to June, which I know you guys know have been declared by our social betters as Pride Month. Everyone has their own opinion about this naturally. Some people find it wonderful, others find it just annoying, and others see it as a sign of the soft totalitarianism that is slowly but surely constricting our society. A view that I think is actually much more in line with reality than the others two, but that's another story. But it is also a sign that our society has become the House of Frankenstein. But Nate! I can hear you shout from behind your own screens. Because I was bitten by a radioactive pair of headphones, and I can totally do that now. We don't have mad scientists mucking around in their laboratories creating monsters that then escape to cause death and destruction in the countryside. Going to the doctor would actually be more interesting if our doctors did look more like this. Well, that's only partially true. While we were all busy watching Aaron Eckhart's Monster fight demons and gargoyles in I, Frankenstein, real-life mad scientists were playing God in their laboratories right here in the real world. For example, does the CRISP-Cas9 technology ring a bell to anyone? It was created in 2012 by Dr. Jennifer Doudna at the University of California, Berkeley, and it is a very dry technical name for a process that allows scientists to treat genetic material like a Word document, basically. The biologist or geneticist or scientist in general can go in and cut out a specific gene in a specific strand of DNA in a specific cell, and then paste in another gene to fill in the hole. And yes, before you ask, this process has already been used to modify human beings and even to create new forms of life. Dr. Jiankyu He at the Southern University of Science and Technology over in China announced in 2018 that he had used CRISPR-Cas9 technology to actually edit two twin girls to make them immune genetically to HIV. And in 2019, Dr. Juan Carlos Belamonte, a stem cell biologist at the Salk Institute in California, collaborated with genetic researchers, again in China, to create human chimpanzee chimeras. In other words, human-animal hybrids. And even better than all this, we have been promised that designer babies are right around the corner. You know, one of the great ironies of life is that for as universally well-loved and well-known as Frankenstein is, we really don't know the story. We know the basic beats of it. Man creates monster, monster causes mayhem, monster, and sometimes scientists both die. But if we really knew the story, if we really knew the messages that Mary Shelley had put into her book, we wouldn't be messing around with genetic material and creating human-animal hybrids. Now, if the medical stuff was all that was going on, that would be bad, that would probably be horrific, but it wouldn't warrant me or anyone else calling our society a House of Frankenstein. But the medical stuff, that's just the tip of the iceberg again. Our society is a House of Frankenstein because the problem goes much deeper than a couple of scientists who have a God complex. No. The real problem is that our drive to create has been corrupted. I've mentioned before that my hero Aristotle said that man is a rational animal, and from that fact we get the reality that man is also a political animal and an animal who is built for companionship. But we also get one other thing from this observation, that man is a creative animal. That is a plain fact of life that we can see all around us, from the books that continue to be written, even by hacks like Christopher Paolini, the music that keeps being composed, even if it is just for purely political purposes, thank you very much Taylor Swift, the architecture that is still being designed, even when it is god-awful and ugly as sin, and the movies that are still being made, even when they are unimaginative pieces of garbage. And the neat thing is that we have always been creative. That's why we have the remains of ancient civilizations. Everything from pyramids and temples to fragments of poetry and pottery. Heck, this goes back to even before history, to prehistory. That's why we have cave paintings. The playwright and the screenwriter David Mamet has said that our minds are like a roaring fire that are constantly churning out ideas. Now that leads us to the question, why are we creative? Why does man have the potential within himself to be so creative that we could produce people like Mozart and Einstein and Shakespeare? The answer is Logos. You might remember when we talked about Logos way back last December. It's more than just reason, which is how the word is usually translated, and is instead the means by which we can actually reach out and touch reality, since it gives us the ability to discover and understand what the essence of a thing is, what makes that thing what it is. And it is the means by which we can see things from another POV with our imaginations. It's what gives us the power to express ourselves poetically. But why do we have Logos to begin with? Well, Christianity says that it's because we're made in the image of God. He is Logos, as John the Evangelist says in his gospel, and we, made in his image, have that fire within ourselves as well. And this is why we have the spark, the desire, the impulse to create. J.R.R. Tolkien put it like this: we, you and me, we create because we ourselves are created. In other words, we are compelled to create because of what we are. And the really neat thing is that this idea that man has a special relationship with the divinity, it's not just found in the Abrahamic religions, it's actually also found in some of the oldest religions in the world. Ancient Egyptian craftsmen, for example, had as their patron deity the creator god Ptah, who, according to Memphite theology, created man by first thinking of him and then giving him life through his word. In ancient Greece, man was an imperfect shadow of the gods of Olympus. And in Old Mexico, the Aztecs believed that mankind sprang up when the blood from one of the gods fell onto the earth. But maybe you're not theistic, and the whole idea of linking Logos with the divine isn't quite your cup of tea. Heck, maybe the entire idea of Logos isn't your cup of tea. Okay, fair enough. But I think that we can all still agree that man is still the only animal in the whole world who can create. Sure, apes have made paintings, chimpanzees have created and utilized simple tools, and termites have built some fantastic hives. But there's a reason why no animal has become another Leonardo da Vinci, or another Beethoven, or another Marie Curie. And that's because while some animals definitely can love, look at dogs and elephants, and some animals can definitely be inventive, again, look at apes and elephants again, no animal can actually think abstractively. No animal can actually ponder the world around them and find the essence of things. No animal can express itself poetically. Those are things that only people can do. But now the question becomes, how has this creative impulse, this drive, been corrupted? And the answer is through pride. Pride is one of those words, another word, that has been absolutely butchered by modern colloquial English, now being attached firmly to the hip of the rainbow flag. But I'm talking about pride in the older sense of the word. The excessive love of our own excellence, the idea that we are such hot stuff that we are the center of the universe. This is actually why C.S. Lewis said that pride was the greatest evil that a man could commit. Now that might seem counterintuitive, but it actually does make sense. If we are the center of reality, if we are, for lack of a better word, God, then all the traditional attributes of God, things like omnipotence, omniscience, all goodness, are reversed and directed back to ourselves. And that gives us carte blanche to do pretty much whatever we want. Hitler wanted to make the Aryan race the master of the world. Lenin, Stalin, and Mao wanted to turn the world into a temporal utopia for the working class. And all of them did monstrous, horrible things to make those ideas into reality. And they never even bothered to ask themselves if those ideas were really all that good to begin with, because of course they had to be good, because they were the ones who had thought of them in the first place. Think of pride as the blank check. It lets us pay for whatever we want to do. This pride has always been with us. Reread the story about the Tower of Babel, or of Alexander's firm belief that it was his destiny to conquer all of the known world. And this pride is still with us today. Human nature hasn't changed, so that hasn't changed either. What else explains the giddiness at the idea that soon we will be able to design our own children just as easily as if we were designing a new car? Or transhumanism, the idea that we will attain immortality here on Earth after the singularity, which is the point in time when man and machine will actually join together after artificial intelligence becomes so advanced we won't be able to tell it apart from a human intellect. Instead of keeping our creativity tethered to the true, the good, and the beautiful, we've allowed it to run rampant anywhere and everywhere it wants. Because pride has told us again that we're the ones in charge. We are the masters not only of our own lives and our own destinies, but the masters of reality. This idea that we are the masters of all reality is due to the idea of freedom, which was given to us oh so generously by the Supreme Court in 1992 in its majority decision for the case Planned Parenthood versus Casey, in which Justice Anthony Kennedy said in the court's majority opinion, quote, "At the heart of liberty is the right to define one's own concept of existence, of meaning, of the universe, and of the mystery of human life." Boom! We are all Victor Frankenstein now, who has just been given the secret of life and who is all too willing to turn that knowledge for his own personal petty gain. But before we actually dive into the proof of that assertion, if you're enjoying the video, take a second now to subscribe and to ring the bell for notifications so that you will always be notified when I post new videos like this every week about the culture, politics, and religion from a unique POV. Gender ideology is the most obvious example of this happening. After all, we have all of the rainbow days, a few of which I mentioned at the beginning of the video, as well as the 63 genders which have been newly discovered. But that is just the beginning. For example, remember when one of the narratives of the gender ideology was that a transgender individual was just a poor person who through no fault of his own had been born into the wrong body, had been born as the wrong sex? Well, that narrative has now changed. Now the narrative has become that transgender individuals are transgender because they choose to be so. Intentional transitioner Andrew Long Chu wrote in 2017 that he became a woman not because he thought that he should have been born a woman, but because he wanted to live out a woman's lifestyle, at least as it's presented in Hollywood. He wrote, quote, "I transitioned for gossip and compliments, lipstick and mascara, for crying at the movies, for being someone's girlfriend, for letting her pay the check or carry my bags, for the benevolent chauvinism of bank tellers and cable guys, for the telephonic intimacy of long-distance female friendship, for fixing my makeup in the bathroom flanked like Christ by a sinner on each side, for sex toys, for feeling hot, for getting hit on by butches, for that secret knowledge of which dykes to watch out for Daisy Duke's bikini tops and all the dresses, and my God, for the breasts." We have even now gotten to the point where we are starting to stitch together different parts of reality to fit our own warped ideas of what reality should look like. For example, have you ever heard of someone named Freddy McConnell? McConnell was a transgender man who kept her lady parts because she still wanted to get pregnant, something that she actually did. But now McConnell is actually appealing a decision that was passed down onto her by the UK's Family Division of the High Court, which ruled that she cannot list herself as the father of her own baby on her baby's birth certificate. Even though at the time of the baby's birth, McConnell had already legally transitioned to become a man. And she can't do this because UK law says that when an individual gives birth to a baby, that individual has to be listed on the baby's birth certificate as the baby's mother, since, you know, only women can give birth to children. Translation, McConnell is demanding that the UK judiciary smash together the ideas of woman and man to fit her own concept of existence. But this House of Frankenstein goes above and beyond just gender gang. Last summer, Carol Bleimer tweeted out a story about how a 19-year-old girl was sobbing to her boss over a spelling correction that her boss had made. The issue in question was the word hamster. The girl had spelled it with a P, and defended her decision adamantly, telling her boss that spelling hamster with a P was perfectly alright because that's how she wanted to spell it, damn it. And it got even better, because after talking with her boss, Bleimer related how the 19-year-old girl proceeded to call her mother, put her on speakerphone, and complain about her mean old boss and her, the boss, not allowing her, the 19-year-old girl, write hamster the way she wanted to write it. And get this, the mom took the daughter's side. Or there's the fact that serious scientific articles are now being written and published in scientific journals, explaining how physics and Einstein's theories are now problematic because they are apparently filled to the brim with white empiricism, which is apparently something altogether different from black empiricism or yellow empiricism, or even red empiricism. The takeaway is that no facet of reality is off limits to anyone who wants to remake it in their image. And if you object to any of it, you're a bigot. The result of this House of Frankenstein is a new world of gods and monsters. The gods are everyone who embraces the House of Frankenstein by accepting the cockamamie definition of freedom, the idea that creativity is all about willpower and not about truth, along with intersectionality, critical theory, and all the other fads of today. And it is not a stretch to call them gods. They're the ones, after all, who are dictating what reality is and what reality isn't. And since, at the present moment, the culture is in their back pocket, they have the power to force their ideas onto the rest of us. That's what the fight over wedding cakes and pronouns is all about. The monsters, of course, are all of us who do not accept this madness, who in fact stand up and say, no, you can't remake reality in your image. It's pretty much set the way that it is. And we're monsters because when we say that reality is what it is, sorry, then what we are actually doing, according to the gods, is attacking their power, attacking their ability to remake the world how they want, which is not only an attack on their happiness and their well-being, but it's an attack on the very core of who they are as well. We are just like the Frankenstein monster crashing into the Frankenstein home on the day of the wedding to cause violence and chaos to the creators. But in a case of
tragic irony or poetic justice,
everyone becomes a monster in the House of Frankenstein. Even the self-appointed gods. Because the end point of the logic of the house means that we are just dead leaves, pushed wherever our emotions or desires take us. This is why we have a guy who in all seriousness insists that he is actually a female dragon and who has spent tens of thousands of dollars on multiple surgeries to actually transform himself into a dragon. It's also why we have another guy who has insisted and done the exact same thing. Instead of turning into a dragon, he has said that he's actually an alien and has therefore spent tens of thousands of dollars to turn himself into that. Now these guys may say, along with the rest of us, that they're actually free to be whatever they want, but in reality they are slaves to their emotions, to their feelings, and to their desires. If I can actually get away with using these words, any normal, well-adjusted person would know that it's not the best idea in the world to spend a small fortune on multiple surgeries that will mutilate your body because you have a feeling that dictates that you're not even human anymore. A well-adjusted person would also know that if you have that persistent feeling, you need professional help. But because the culture says that our feelings and emotions are the true compass point of what we are and what we should do, and that we can now remold reality in accordance with our feelings, out with logic and common sense, in with the medical apparatus. And the end result of that is an erosion of our humanity. Humans are human because our essence is infused with the Logos. We're not simply thinking machines or emotionally reactive machines. We are so much more than that. We can love, we can invent, we can wonder, we can create, we can imagine, we can ponder, we can abstract, we can do all of these things together, and we can do all of them without plugging ourselves into one outlet or another. The idea that we are nothing more than what our emotions or desires dictate strips us away of our humanity, bringing us back down to the level of a one-celled amoeba. And in fact, it actually makes us worse than that, because at least a one-celled amoeba, it's supposed to be a one-celled amoeba. We're not supposed to be that. We are supposed to be men. But the culture tells us that we are simply one-celled amoebas, and it treats us as such. And when something becomes something other than what it's supposed to be, then there's only one word to describe that thing. And that is monster. But as always, what say you? What are some ways that you think that we can actually reclaim our humanity from the House of Frankenstein, as well as ultimately burn it to the ground, as so often happens in the movies? As always, let me know your thoughts, ideas, and opinions in the comment box below. Well, that about wraps up everything for right now, gang. Before you go, if you could give the video a like and share it on social media with your friends, I'd be very much obliged. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And until next week when I talk to you again, gang, remember to dare to read, think, speak, and write. And be human. I'll talk to you next time. Ciao.